All right, catching up with Isaac Joy, an organizer with King County Equity Now. Man, let's get right into it. The mayor vetoed a lot of budget stuff yesterday. A lot of it had defund items in it, things that King County Equity Now has been supporting. What is King County Equity Now's position in regards to the mayor's veto?
Our position is the mayor's veto was another action that revealed her complete disregard for Black Black lives in the Seattle Black community. As you know, Big O, that the Central District, Seattle's Black community has been hit incredibly hard by COVID-19. The mayor did not provide a plan for that. Then we had the federal funding that was provided to businesses, and we know that Black businesses were almost excluded from that funding. The mayor didn't provide a plan for that. And then against that backdrop, we had kind of civil rights protests that we haven't seen in nearly a generation. People pushing back against decades and decades of police violence, and particularly towards Black and Indigenous communities. And in response to that, what the mayor did is she held a press conference and vetoed amendments that would have provided $4 million directly into community-led solutions for gun violence, and in the same breath tried to weaponize gun violence in our city as a justification to keep the police force. So again, using gun violence for folks that, I mean, we know this stuff is real. We both know, like King, we both know folks that have been impacted in the last month by people that have died from gun violence. And so we have to play in political theater when there's lives on the line. There are different levels of kind of disregard for Black life. And we provided community passingways, Choose 180, creative justice, a whole host of gun prevention programs that have incredibly successful rates. They put a whole suite, a package together to address the gun violence taking place in Seattle that's going to continue, particularly because of the economic fallout. We're in a Great Depression that we haven't seen in nearly 100 years. And so we know when people don't have food, when people don't have the means to survive, things get tough, which is why it's so incredibly important that right now, before things get worse, we do the appropriate investments into the programs that are known to solve these issues. And the mayor stood up and stood behind a pedestal and tried to kind of feign concern and care for Black people, all the while vetoing.
Are you saying that the mayor's talks, what the mayor's saying about her care or concern for the value of Black lives is disingenuous?
Absolutely. I'll say that with 100%. I mean, and it's just the proof's in kind of the pudding. I mean, what improvement have you seen in the Black community? I mean, we have to get thousands of not only Black people, but the mayor's probably base, her white base, to crowd around the fire station just to get the mayor to do a PR public tweet agreeing to transfer it over. And I think you've had insight into how difficult that process is. For example, the mayor speaks about $100 million injection into the Black community, but we haven't seen it. You speak all the time about.
Let me stop you right there, Isaac, because the $100 million, this came up yesterday. Hannah Scott from Cairo posed a question and said that the King County Equity Now is demanding to basically control or have some control over this $100 million. I had two questions here on that. Are you guys demanding control over this $100 million? And two, is the $100 million even real? I mean, there's $300 million shortfall, there's this and that. Is this $100 million, do you think it's actually going to materialize?
Well, yeah. So to your first question, so I think the mayor, I feel perhaps has a number of things taking place and may not just be as familiar with the participatory budget process. I think has somewhat of a perception. So the short answer, no, it's not running through King County Equity now. Participatory budget process is a process where the community, the entire community, engages and puts forward proposals for what they want to see in terms of public safety. And then those proposals are then voted on by everybody. So I think that's just kind of a technical, that maybe perhaps confusion. Also, and related, I'm glad that you brought up that point, because in the mayor's comments, she consistently inaccurately portrays us as kind of not wanting to engage, or not wanting to, us wanting to hold hostage a certain process, when in fact, Decriminalize Seattle and King County Equity Now have been supported by over 420 organizations and over 50,000 people. So the mayor, and yet the mayor has not actively engaged with us in these processes. So
the mayor says that city council has not had a willingness to compromise or negotiate or discuss. And I know that you guys have had talks. I asked all the council members who you've been talking to, and almost all of them came back. At least King County Equity Now was one of the groups that was on the list there. Are you feeling that, I mean, you're saying that the mayor has not shown a willingness to really discuss or willingness to compromise, but could the same be said about city council as well?
I wouldn't say so at all. I'm not, from my vantage point, I feel that city council has much more so than the mayor made an earnest effort to hear from the community. You know, again, I think the mayor tries to dismiss King County Equity Now or Decriminalize Seattle as kind of small coalitions. We've been supported by over 100 Black-led organizations. I mean, if we've it's almost too long to list. I mean, Black and Brown Minds Matter, Black and Pink Seattle Tacoma, Black and Town Hall, Black Collective Voice, Black Community Impact Alliance, Black Dot, Black Health and Black Wellness Network, Black Power Epicenter Cooperative, Black Power Unlimited, Black Star Alliance, African Center Education, Black Fort Films. This is just the bees, you know. So it's clearly our reach and our connection within the Black community is incredibly vast, and for the mayor to just actively dismiss that entire base, I think it just speaks volumes.
Are you saying that she's dismissed you because the bill was vetoed? Or are you saying she's dismissed you because there hasn't been what you feel honest engagement and conversation and points where you guys might be able to connect? Or is it both?
No, I think it's the latter. There hasn't been, throughout this entire process, any honest engagement. I think the mayor, for whatever reason, I think likes to have control over the process. I think from my personal vantage point, has put her own political interest and kind of personal slights ahead of the interest of the community she's supposed to serve. You know, it's been a lot of, really, from my vantage point, petty politics. And petty politics where, you know, for example, when COVID-19 was first kind of ravaging the community, there was the mayor called meetings supposedly with the Black community leaders, and in that meeting excluded a number of folks that the mayor is so overtly aware are recognized in the Black community as community leaders. So regardless if the mayor has a personal you know, maybe vendetta with someone, you would imagine someone that's holding that office, it's not middle school. You hold a higher position and you're held to a different standard. Your office is to do what's best for the entire community. And we see time and time again where the mayor tries to basically blatantly lie to the public to try to project and portray kind of a process that's just not happening. You know, it's like there's nothing radical about our group. I tell folks, like, we're kind of middle managers. You know, the mayor is, if you just think about this, Omari, it's a $400 million budget. There's a $300 million shortfall. Teachers are going to get cut. Bus drivers are going to get cut. If you have a private company, your company is taking off, which has been awesome, which is so dope, as it should. But a lot of private companies are having struggles. And let's say you have a private company and there's 12 people. Instead of laying people off, private companies are saying, hey, we're going to work 4 days a week. You know, so basically what I'm trying to highlight is everyone is making sacrifices. And in this context, a police department has a $400 million budget, more than almost all the other budgets combined. And they don't want to even make cuts to things like horses that serve no other purpose. They're not active duty, they're public engagement. We have police officers that are making nearly $500,000 a year, which again, you know, I'm not for.
Let me jump in right there, because when we talked about, you mentioned the word petty and you talked about petty politics. I think that, you know, it's very obvious that the mayor and definitely the chief took the offense to the cut in pay, and something that they kind of paraphrasing here also called petty, and also saying that I think that we've got some feedback here in the community about a Black woman being cut, you know, her pay being cut from her job. So you were talking about the executive pay. It spawned that, not to take you off direction here, but when you talked about pettiness in City Hall, does this pettiness kind of go both ways there? In that, like I said, they're feeling that the pay cut to the chief and her executive staff was petty.
Well, no. So I would say in that instance, Omari, and it's only because it's serious. What's petty for me in that example is a mayor that's really trying to capitalize on the first Black woman in office to hide behind her complete lack of action and plan for the Black community. So, I mean, it's like kind of racism 101 to bring up someone and say, I have a Black friend, and oh, you're treating this Black friend so poorly. Oh, you racist. And yet me, who has the authority, the jurisdiction, and the power to do many actions that right now could uplift the Black community, and I actively stymie those. So to me, that's the pinnacle of political posturing. And it's something that is, for me, negligent. It's violent. You know, these are the types of actions that lead to people getting killed in the streets because we don't have the preventative measures. We already have myself, all the folks that I know, we've been doing this pretty much purely on volunteer time. Dom Davis, these folks, I mean, they're incredibly stretched. And so it's I don't know, it's tough to see, honestly. It's like I wouldn't suspect to see this stuff. Just to be honest, maybe I should be more cynical, but I would imagine that the severity of kind of the issues we're dealing with would surface through kind of some of these petty politics, but it hasn't been the case. And I would just ask you, I would flip all these questions to yourself as someone that's deeply connected and plugged into the community, and just ask, like, from the folks that you know in the community, from the people that you just know on the ground, are you seeing their conditions improve? Are you seeing folks excited about the new school year?
If you're asking me a question, you know, I'll tell you this, is that this has been a very liberal city since, you know, I was a baby, and Black people have been in constant decline in this city. So, I mean, my level of overall confidence in what happens downtown is, well, measured, you know, at best. They say men lie, women lie, the numbers don't lie. And the numbers just show that constant decline in the status of Black people, you know, in economics and property ownership and education has been in decline under leadership down there in City Hall. And so that's for sure one thing that I can say. I want to take you back here real quick, though, too. You were talking about the budget, and you talked about the cut of the horses, cut of executive pay, and things like that to be able to support some of these programs that you mentioned at the top of our interview, where you're talking about things that address gun violence and programs in the community. What where do you think, or do you think that you feel that there was no space at all for any kind of compromise in between? Basically, SPD wasn't going to give up a penny, is what you were saying. I just paraphrasing that, but I want to take you back to what you were saying, is that the $400 million budget, you wanted them to give up some horses, you wanted them to cut the pay, and they weren't with it.
Yeah, I mean, like, again, I think what was ultimately, this has been a lot of theater. There's been a lot of news articles, a lot of interviews for ultimately, I think, $6 million reduction and a 400, maybe even less, and a 406 million. So you would imagine, like, imagine there's no protest. What is the average cut in the city budget for a department in a $300 million shortfall?
The mayor would come back and say that she cut 20 million, just, straight up cut as a part of a department cut based upon the budget.
5%, less than 5%, less than 5%. And it's also, again, just in context, imagine that you are the executive and you have 10 departments, and one of the departments is about, let's say, half your budget. And that department is, whatever you want to say about that department, there's a huge fraction of your city that has issues, so much so that they're protesting in the streets. You would imagine, like, in a $300 million shortfall, the 5% has to be like the average cut. So if there's such a focus, and the mayor can state things like, yes, we have systemic racism. Yes, we have videos of people getting beaten. Yes, we have an over-militarized police force where instead of, we can't pay teachers adequately. Like, we don't even have the resources to keep them give rent. I can walk down the street and I'm going to see homeless encampments, and instead, but I can also see incidents where police are called and 6 different vehicles show up to touch base with Elder Omari Garrett about some stuff at NAM, and I'm thinking, for me, or for example, that the average starting salary was $83,000. Okay, for folks that it's startling that the mayor is basically, from my eyes, being held hostage by SPOG, and is putting their interests over, to your point, a Black community that's been steadily on the decline. I mean, you've talked to the mayor over and over. Have you ever heard a plan? Have you ever heard a plan from the mayor?
Well, what I've heard from the mayor, and this is also something I wanted to bring up with you. What we hear from the mayor is, like you said, she had $100 million earmarked for this year, for the next 10 years, for a total of 10 years, for $1 billion, and also $5 million this year to go to tutoring and mentoring, and also the transfer of properties from city back to community. Our understanding is that the mayor is going to be unveiling this plan in September. And they always tell me, because I hit them like, what's your plan? What's your plan? And they're like, man, wait till September. So just kind of anxiously waiting over here to see what the plan is. But when we hear the mayor talk, the mayor says that she meets with community. And she's definitely meeting with some people in the community. And this is one of the things is that this back in June or in July, I said, who are you talking to? Who is this? Same thing I asked the city council members and everything else. I even asked the chief of police, who are you talking to? Because if these are policies that are being crafted that are supposed to change and impact the lives of Black community and forever change the trajectory of here in the Emerald City, I think it's important that there's some kind of understanding of who people are talking to or who people are representing. If you say King County Equity Now is representing a greater group of people and organizations. I say all that to say this, is we know who the very public face of some of the people that the mayor meets with. Those are the Black preachers. Also, Andre Taylor, not this time. There's a few others. My question is, does King County Equity Now also talk to people like Andre Taylor or talk to the Black preachers organizations? Is there, intercommunication between these groups, or is it two totally separate communication chains that are talking down there at City Hall?
I would say that, our networks and our ecosystem is incredibly broad. So includes folks that have been, you know, it's why I think your mom likely endorsed, wrote us a letter because, you know, folks are connected in the community, meaning just that, yes, folks do know Andre Taylor, they know, you know, the pastors and whatnot. And folks have absolutely been in conversations with them at times. I think from my vantage point, there's a couple things happening. One, there's this false equivalency. So, you know, the mayor brings a Black person next to her and, you know, draws confusion about kind of the scale or scope of the folks that she's working with. So she can point to an Andre Taylor, she can point to the pastors and say that I have an authentic connection or voice into the Black, you know, into the Black community, and I'm hearing them. Unfortunately, I would just know those groups they're just not the same scale. They're not the same scale. They don't reflect the same demographics. They don't reflect the same group. They don't reflect the same scope. We could show it. We could showcase it in the numbers. We can showcase it in the people that show out. We could showcase it in the people that they support. So the mayor really has to do gymnastics truly to avoid us because we're so broad. And so it's very apparent if there was a party and you represented 80 people, 90 people, and then, you know, folks are consistently only interacting with one or two, but presenting it to the public who, let's just be honest, there's a very big gap in the white community and other communities really understanding some of the organizing and what's taking place in the Black community. So they might see a pastor or they might see someone being held up and they don't know. Unfortunately, people in the community do know. And that's why when we hold events or we provide, you know, we do things, people show out, you know, it's authentic, it's organic, it's very, very, very real. So,
Well, man,
yeah.
and on that note as well, and actually we have Andre Taylor here on Wednesday on the morning update show, but on Friday he did a press conference right down there at City Hall, and one of the key points there was he said that he wanted Chief Best to not retire and return to the police force. Now, of course, Chief Best said that, you know, thank you, but no thank you. But what do you feel about something like that? You know, somebody like a Chief Best now coming back to the force and pushing through this plan for reimagination that she had rolled out earlier this year.
I think that all of this stuff, I think the focus, you know, and the attention should first and foremost be on the communities that have historically and are presently most impacted by this. So I would love for these larger conversations to stop focusing and centering individuals and start focusing and centering the communities impacted. I think if people did that, we would see a ton more movement. I think I'm much more concerned about the people that are getting killed in the streets. I'm much more concerned about the people that might not have food in their pantries. I'm much more concerned about the people that don't have housing. I'm much more concerned, you know, about the parents that are trying to figure out what they're going to do with their kids come this fall, you know, and how are they going to make it work. And so for me, again, this is real life. This is real impact. And so I would appreciate and I would, you know, expect our elected officials to care and focus on the communities that they were elected to serve. So, you know, the Chief Best thing, to me, it's a red herring. There are much more pressing issues that I think we should be focusing on.
Okay, just a few more questions here. 30 days the city council has to come back and either override the veto, come with some kind of plan. It seems like the mayor has a little bit more of a conciliatory tone. Some members of the council do as well. What do you see happening when this comes back around here? Do you think that all elements of defund that were in these amendments is dead, dead on arrival now? Or do you feel that there's going to be able to be some kind of compromise between the city council and the mayor over the next few weeks?
Yeah, well, I would hope that city council um, understands kind of the gravity of their ability to make tangible impact into the Black community, into poor communities, into indigenous communities, to make our city safer. And so I think to your point about not seeing any progress for those communities over decades, I think it's long time that city council and the mayor provide a plan to these communities highlighting how they're going to move our communities towards equity. And so for me, why that's so important is because it's August now. We're getting towards September. No injection, no investment into the community, no resources. So, you know, outside of this political theater, outside of folks focusing on a resignation of Chief Best, I would like City Council to focus on the constituents, to focus on the Black community that has been woefully underserved, and to do what they're elected to do, to serve their communities and do the things that they need to do to maximize public safety. We've provided plans that we can demonstrate, provide better public safety for our citizens. So all we're asking our elected officials to do is to not even be brave. Don't prioritize necessarily your position. Don't prioritize your personal interest, and do what's best for your community. And in doing so, you'll actually be supported. If you do these things that the community is asking for, you'll make Seattle better. And in doing so, will likely secure your own position. And if not secure your own position, at least secure your place in the right side of history, which should be the most important thing that they're interested in. So I asked City Council that they should push back, absolutely, that it's $406 million budget and it's been reduced basically by nothing in the same year when teachers and bus drivers and other folks are getting fired. I ask that City Council does their job. You know, I'll take the line from Bill Belichick, our nemesis: do your job. That's it. Just do your job. Don't focus on the willy-nilly, the woo. Just do their job, and that is do best by their community, by the citizens that are asking for Seattle to be more than it is today, for Seattle to be better, to do better by its citizens, to do better by its communities. So that's, I would ask City Council. I hope they do it, and the communities will definitely be watching, and irrespective of what they do or the mayor, we are continually going to advocate, continually going to build, and continually try to make our community safer, because that's all we can do. All we can do is try to strive to make this city conducive and able in an environment that's hospitable for everyone to thrive, not just the select few.
All right, Isaac Joy, King County Equity Now. We're going to keep checking in with you and seeing what's going on. And I think next time we'll talk, we didn't get a chance this time, but next time we'll talk about that scorecard and see exactly where demands are at from your end and where things are at on the city side, man. Thanks for taking the time to join me today.
Appreciate it. Always appreciate it. Thanks, y'all.
All right. So